Hey everyone, welcome back to Smut Chat with Jeen Bean. So, there's been a lot of hunger around conversations around neurodivergence specifically and how it interplays with the world of AudioErotica. In fact, it's such a frequently requested topic that we're actually going to do a couple of these Smut Chats on various subtopics within the greater sort of neurodivergent experience. And so, you all know me, I will never speak for an experience that I do not currently have. So, I'm thrilled to actually introduce you to my partner in crime for today's conversation, Steph. Hello, Steph. Say hi. Tell us who you are.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steph. I use she, her pronouns in this space. I'm an audio erotica enthusiast, dabble a little bit in writing, do some content creation, little line edits on those audios that really just scratch the itch. Nice to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you here. You are actually one of the first friends I made in the AudioErotica space, so it's actually really kind of
Oh,
a
baby.
kismet round moment to have you here on Smut Chat. I'm really happy you said yes to this. I know one of the things that you've been really open about, not only in your personal life, but sort of like on your public platforms, is that you have ADHD. And that's obviously one
Mhm.
form of neurodivergence. Things that you and I've talked about prior to this conversation has been sort of the role of like hyperfixation, the sensory stuff when it comes to neurodivergence and ADHD. So we wanted to talk a little bit about both of those things today. So we're going to start with hyperfixation because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this, whether or not you have ADHD or not. But
Mhm.
hyperfixation, as defined as like intense, prolonged, sometimes it's all consuming focus on maybe a particular task or an activity or topic or subject. And so I'm just curious to know, the amount that you're willing to share. What does hyperfixation look like for you, just like in general in your life?
So it very much is that it's something that allows me to kind of go into this state of hyper focus, really. It's like an interest that goes beyond, just a casual, I like this kind of
Mm.
thing. So it is intense. I think that's one of the words you use. And I do think that's a pretty good defining factor. And not necessarily in a bad way, but with as somebody with ADHD, focus is usually something I struggle with.
Mm.
Hyperfixation is kind of the other end of the spectrum of that. This is kind of the thing that I'm so, interested in that I can hyper focus on as compared to not focusing at all.
I'm just going to ask for you to speak to your own experience. Obviously, you can't speak for anybody else,
Yeah,
but
of course.
like, is there like a spectrum of like healthy versus unhealthy hyperfixation? And like, how do you navigate that dynamic and that spectrum? Tell me a little bit more about that experience or your experience rather.
I think spectrum's like, word to use because there are ways for hyperfixation to be healthy and to be unhealthy. And I think for me in particular, that's been a learning
Mm.
experience, kind of understanding for me, where's the drawing line? Where's, the point where this becomes a bad thing or a problem instead of something that's, a positive contribution to my life. So for me, it's usually when the hyperfixation has gotten to the point where it is keeping me from focusing on other things in my
Mm.
life or causing me to ignore or neglect other things in my life. So if it's, hey, I'm prioritizing this thing over other responsibilities, other connections with people, that's the line for me. And that's not a healthy thing for me personally.
Mm. I've definitely had moments where I'm like, I think I need to pull back. I think I'm thinking too much about this
Hmm.
particular voice actor or this particular audio.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, because obviously we're here to talk about smut, because that's why we're here.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, like, what does that look like for you in the audio erotica space, like specifically hyperfixation and how it shows up in your engagement with audio erotica?
So I think it kind of shows up in a couple different ways because for me, the hyperfixation really is kind of around the entirety of it. So I discovered Quinn in January 2024,
Mm.
and it was immediately something I was particularly interested in. And first, it was just, okay, what is this thing? Let me learn everything about it. And then it was the community. And, I got to meet you, I got to meet a bunch of other people that I love and, build some great relationships. And then there's, can be hyperfixations on specific, actors and like their characters and the lore, or even like you said, on specific audios. Like there are definitely audios that I listen to
Just out of curiosity, what's
on
on your
repeat.
repeat? What's on your repeat list?
Oh no, don't do that to
You,
me, Jeannie.
you don't have to answer that.
I'm not going to answer that one.
That is totally fair. I listen to
Uh,
Clear Head by Marzy a lot, and I don't know why.
oh yeah.
It's like on my repeat. Not sure why. Anyway.
So Doc's Smoke Break too.
Oh, I love that
Um,
one. Oh my God, it's
is it Strength and
yeah,
Power? It's a safe for work
yeah.
one, but there's just something. There's something about it, it's part of it's the like the music that comes in later. It's just like the exact right music for that whole vibe. And it makes me feel powerful. He did so good with that.
That one, well, also, am I? Yeah, I'm gonna say it because he released it after the election, and it was, I think he very
Yes.
intentionally released it after the election, and I
Hmm.
remember being like, because a lot of other VAs did these like really lovely like, I love you and you're wanted and women are amazing and like I'm holding you and don't cry. I'm not like a super soft girl, and so to have Doc be
Yeah.
like, fuck the patriarchy, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to
He was
Smoke
like,
Break,
you can use your anger.
mm-hmm.
You can yell. Men do it. I was like,
Doc, like with
can
that
happen.
audio, sealed himself into like the forever hall of good, like just
Yes.
forever. So
Yes.
totally off topic.
No.
So sometimes it can be about audios, but yeah, tell me like the good, the bad, the ugly of hyperfixation when it comes to your engagement with
Mm.
audio erotica.
Yeah, so the good, and this is I think for my hyperfixation generally, is that state of hyperfocus really lets me like dive deep into
Mm,
something and learn, like, to the extent there are, skills or information to be learned really quickly because it's something that you're so focused on. You kind of have this, deep thought, deep, learning state of mind, which is really fun because it's, there are like parts of my brain now that just hold like lore or information about like different audios, different like characters in audios, like series. Same with kind of like the community aspect of it, just, because it's something that, I focus so much on, it's been really, I think for me, easy to learn all the goods and the bads and, what can be changed. And it's, a learning experience, but the focus is what helps.
I feel like first of all, I could play trivia with you, and like I would be shocked at like your knowledge of certain audios or characters or personas. It's always very, very impressive to me how good you are at that. Like if there were like a Jeopardy for smut, I think you would kill that.
Mhm.
But what's the
Is
bad
that
side?
is that a
Is
thing?
that a thing? Should we? Should we make? Hmm.
Okay. Take that note
Yeah,
because
I'm just gonna write that
I don't
down on
want
the
to forget.
side. Tell me about the bad. Is there a bad side to hyperfixation in audio erotica?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely can be. It's, again, for me, that would look like, and whether it's kind of audio erotic in general or a specific audio, specific voice actor, specific space. I mean, it can be kind of any or all of those things. But it's exactly that point of, okay, I'm spending so much time on this that I'm not spending time on anything
Mm,
else, right?
I've
And
had
I
those
think for
days.
me, oh yeah, we're like, wait, did I listen to smut for eight
Like
hours?
literally, I'm like, did I not listen to a single podcast today? Or like the wind?
Yeah. Have I seen the
Yeah.
sun? What day is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you, this is not
Uh,
on our talking points list. So I'm putting you a little bit on the spot. With the hyperfixation piece, like one of the questions I have is like, do you think that some of the hyperfixation can overlap with things like parasocial dynamics, or do you think that those are really separate things, or is there like a Venn diagram? I'm just curious for your like thoughts on that.
hmm, that's a good one. I mean, all your questions are good, but yeah, no, I do think they are related because, again, if the object of the hyperfixation is a specific voice
Right.
actor, in the space, and you're hyper focusing on that, that actor and the characters they play. Sometimes, and I was very intentional with that, the actor and the characters they
Mm-hmm.
play, but sometimes those things can get conflated. And if you're hyper focusing, I think that really could, is one of the ways you can get into some parasocial, situations, parasocial relationship issues, especially if you don't have that distinction or maybe aren't, kind of aware of parasocial relationships, generally, and kind of the good and bad that come with all that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think what you said about sort of like how it can take away from like time spent like IRL or like losing track of
Hmm.
time and spending too much time on listening to audios, for example, that you and I have clearly both
Yeah.
done, and being able to like make those. I feel like there's probably quite a lot of overlap around like, am I spending too much time on like one voice actor or like
Hmm.
have I thought about anything other than this audio or this person or this or even just this world? So I've been there. I've
Yeah.
definitely taken like digital detoxes because I've been like, oh,
Hmm.
I am thinking about audio erotica and the community way too much and I need to like step out. I know for me too, like I had a conversation with my husband who was like, I just feel like you're not here. And he was totally right. Like I
Hmm.
was in the room with him and I was
You're
on my
like,
phone.
yeah.
And so like that was like a really good moment for me to be like, oh, right, my real life is here and I need to
Mhm.
I need to just put a line up and like let me step away for a second. So I'm curious to know if you've had any similar experiences or anything like that that you're willing to share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I know we've talked a lot about it and you've done a lot, kind of on your platform talking about, this issue. For me, it's understanding kind of, what those first signs are.
Mm,
And I think for me, generally it tends to be, okay, am I, staying up or like waking up in the middle of the night to like, check on like what's going on, right? Or seeing, just kind of engaging in a way that I usually wouldn't. Like, okay, that's probably the time to
mm.
do something about it. Or if I do, have a conversation with my husband, he's like, "Hey, where you been?" Like, "Oh, okay, here we go." But I think kind of, the longer I'm in this space, the easier it is for me to kind of catch it before it really becomes too much of an issue.
Yeah.
And then I think having accountability buddies, right, that you check in with or that you feel comfortable going to when you have these moments to just help you, if you need help sorting out what a healthy break would look like how do you go about that? Sometimes for me, it's exactly that. It's a okay, I'm just going to unplug for the weekend. Like I'm, not going to be on my phone at all. I'm not going to be in the space, just take a step back. Sometimes it's okay, well, I'll engage with this, but let me, kind of set a time that I'm going to do it, right? So, okay, so from this hour, I'll, listen to audio or do the thing. But kind of after that, outside of that, I'm not going to engage. So there's different ways to do it. Everybody's experience is different, but I think having support, kind of understanding what unhealthy looks like for you and understanding how to manage the hyperfixation if it does get into kind of that unhealthy space.
That's actually, I think that's super helpful to kind of name like, hey, like learn your signs that you might be
Mhm.
hyperfixating in an unhealthy way. Because I think there's also like healthy
Yeah,
ways to hyperfixate. And we'll talk about that in a second. But
absolutely.
like, I think what you said about like figure out what your symptoms are, like what are the signs that it's actually
Mhm.
not great. Like one thing you said was like when I start behaving in like out of character ways, like I think that's super smart to be like, wait, would I normally do this? Am I feeling like
Yeah.
particularly like off center or something? I think another
Mhm.
thing you said was what did you say at the beginning? It was really good. It wasn't
I
about.
think everything I say is really good,
It's true.
Jeannie.
I agree with that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
But I mean, well, maybe that's the question is like, what are your personal signs that like you might need to like, oh, need a minute.
It's again engaging in ways that are kind of out of character for me. If somebody in my life mentions it, I mean, especially somebody I trust, I take that. Outside of that, if I notice other things slipping, especially like the things you don't want to do, right? Like, oh, I haven't done the laundry in 6 weeks. Like, okay, why aren't you doing the laundry? Because you're on Discord. Like, come on now. So there's a couple different, the signs, but I think for me, most of the time it's that initial, something happens or I do something and it's that thought of that's that's not something that I typically do. That's not something I typically
Mm.
feel. That's kind of out of character. Let's take a second to kind of assess that and see, if maybe that's a, first sign that a break might be needed.
Yeah. I think it's really
Yeah.
wise. I think really self aware to be like, okay, like these are the things I need to be on the lookout for. I want to be careful not to talk about hyperfixation only in terms of like when it's unhealthy, because I actually think it can also be really healthy and really fun.
Mhm.
So I would love to hear more about your experience when hyperfixation has been like kind of a boon, like something that's like really helped or
Mhm.
been like a positive thing in your life. Give me examples. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so I think in AudioErotica for me, part of it has been the the community and
Mm,
like the community building and like learning about that. Because it's something that I hyper focus on, it's also something I invest a lot in, right? Both in time and effort and emotion and all of that. Spending the time building or joining and fostering communities, fostering relationships, meeting new people and we come together because we have a shared interest in this thing in audio erotica, but then the relationships you build out of that obviously are more robust and it's not just this one thing. So I really enjoy that because I think sometimes daily life gets in the way of kind of those little moments of you know friendship, right? And it's, oh well, have I haven't caught up with so and so in forever. And having some of these spaces where it's as easy as hey, like, resharing your story or
mm,
posting or, jumping in DMs. That's one of the things I would say. outside of that, it's really like the fact that you think I could win like Smut Jeopardy.
I
I
mean, I
think I might
really
have
think you
peaked. I
could.
think I peaked, Jenny. No, it's really for me. I call it lore, but I mean that's really what it is. It's you focus, and this is something you're interested in, so you remember it, and it's like categorized in your brain. Like the way that certain people can like throw out like pop culture
Hmm.
references or like lines from TV shows. I can't do that. I've just never gotten into TV or movies enough to be able to do that. But when it comes to smut, like I can drop you a line, I can drop timestamps, I can tell you like you know, audio titles from a catalog without looking. So
I
I
love
yeah.
that. I love that you're like a smut glossary, like a walking human smut glossary. I just really think that that's fantastic. I also like you. I know you kind of you downplayed it in your intro, but you're a writer. Like you started writing scripts and
Yes,
you have a couple published
yes,
on
I have.
Quinn. Um,
Yep,
and I'm like, does hyperfixation play a role in that? Like, yeah, tell me
yes,
about the writing process.
it does. Yes, no, it does because it's so far. So I've been writing probably about two-ish months now. So newer to the space still, but it's been easy because it is the subject of a hyperfixation. So if I have an idea, and a lot of times my ideas start with a title, it's like, oh, that's a really punny title, and you just build around that. I have the idea, and it's like, okay, open the Word doc and like write it
Yeah,
and sit down and write it. And like sometimes I'll take a bath at night, trying to relax. And that's where I do a lot of my writing is, from my phone because an idea will pop in my head and I'll sit down and just, pop out a, 15-20 minute script. So I haven't, run into yet issues with like writer's block or, struggling to find the story or build the story because it is a hyperfixation and I just focus on it and it just
I
happens.
love that. Well, and I think that's, I mean, I'm sure a lot of writers who might listen to this will feel a little envious of that because it's, I mean, sometimes it is
Yeah.
just like you almost wish you had that hyperfixation to like get through. Because sometimes I can bang out a script in like
Mm-hmm.
4 hours and it's like the first draft
Mm-hmm.
is like pretty good. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I stare at a script for like 2 weeks and I'm like, I don't
Yes.
know what to do with this. So,
See, and the fun thing is I always have multiple, I mean always multiple going on at a time. So there is one on my work in process that's just been sitting there, I think like for 2 months because that was the only one where I had the idea and I started it and just it wasn't flowing the way I wanted to. And
yeah.
I was like, okay, well I'll come back to
Yeah.
it. No, I immediately went to the other like 10 ideas I had and that's just sitting and it'll just sit there
I think
until the focus
I
arrives.
think every scriptwriter who heard that like is gonna be able to relate to what you just said. And I'll say like I tell this to my friends all the time. Like my notes app looks unhinged. Like don't ever open my notes
Hmm.
app because it's like I write
Oh,
punny
absolutely.
titles, I write like lines I
Hmm.
want to incorporate or like storylines, and I'm
Yes.
like, if somebody opened
Do
this
you do
app,
tags?
sometimes
I'll like just write random
oh I haven't done
text.
tags actually. Maybe I should. That's great.
I just like I'll be sitting there, it'll just come into my mind and literally just open a note and put like the tags, and it's like, and then you open it later, you're like, what's happening?
Oh, I
What?
have. I've definitely written like bullet points and been like gone back to it like a couple days later and been like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I know one of the other things we've talked a lot about with regard to like your experience having ADHD and in the audio erotica space is like sensory things, and just neurodivergence
Hmm.
in general. Sensory things are very, very prominent for
Hmm.
many, not all. So I'm just curious for your experience, like sensory. I'm talking about like sound effects, but also like the ability to like imagine what's going on, which I know you and I've talked about before. Tell me about your experience with like the sensory experience of an audio.
So I think for me, sound effects do play the biggest, part of it. So I, in addition to having ADHD, have a neurological condition called aphantasia.
Hmm.
So I can't visualize imagery. So kind of the, description, like physical description, anything like that, even if it's around like the environment, doesn't matter as much to me because I can't visualize it in my brain. The sound effects. So, and I think that's probably part of the reason why the sound effects do matter even more because that's
Because you
kind
don't
of
have the
what's
visual.
building.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's building the story for me. And there's also kind of this, concept of, what kind of sound effects are overstimulating, right? You can run into that, or where, are the sound effects not stimulating enough
Mm.
to where it's difficult for me to focus on the audio and actually, enjoy it. So I would say, as far as things that work for me, generally any sort of like cinematic production, because it just inherently has, more sound
Yeah.
effects. It feels like you're listening to a movie, but also kind of any of the DOM audios, MDOM, FDOM, anything like that. It's the really commanding like tones that
Oh,
grab
interesting.
my attention.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
say more about that. I love that. Because also,
Yeah, so
yes.
I mean, yeah, because also yes, I have lots of reasons for being a sub, but that's definitely one of them. It's the tone of the voice. It's what's being said. I mean, it demands your attention.
Mm.
It insists on your attention and your focus, and you're like, oh, like when the line, look at me, especially if it's like punctuated. That's it. I'm like, okay, I will listen to whatever you have to say for the next 3 hours. So that's definitely it. It's, yeah, Dom
I
audios,
love that because I actually
10 out of
hadn't
10.
thought about like SFX, like sound effects makes sense. Cinematic
Mhm.
productions, like movie-like productions, makes a lot of sense, especially for someone who struggles to visualize what might be going on. But I never thought about like tone of voice being part of that
Mhm.
experience, and that makes it makes so much sense. But I never would have like come to that conclusion without you saying that. So thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that. I know you
cool.
started
Happy
talking
to.
about this a little bit, but like, what are the things that don't work for you? Like when as far as like sensory experiences.
So audios without sound effects at
Mm.
all, and I mean there are those audios kind of in multiple platforms in space, unless it's something that's really short. So Cavern has an audio. It's do as I say. I think it's like 5 minutes
Mm.
maybe. It was actually the first audio I listened to when I joined the app. So thanks, Cavern, and hit the subscribe button. I was like, okay, here we go. But because it's so short, and also that is more of a
I was
dommy
gonna say, do as I
instruction,
say sounds
kind of
dummy.
audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a JOI.
Uh,
So it's very like this is what like do this.
mhm.
And because it's so short, the lack of sound effects is okay. But most other audios not having sound effects, I can't focus
Mm.
at all. Which it kind of makes me sad because there are so many great stories, but my brain is the way it is. So here we are.
Hey, listen, you know what you like, you know what your brain likes, and it's like a little
Hmm.
Goldilocks, like you have to go shopping. Like, what is it too much
Yeah.
SFX, not enough SFX, just the right amount of SFX?
Yes.
This is sort of a question that I didn't put on our talking points list, but I'm curious, and maybe
Hmm.
this is where we can like close out or wrap up or things. But I'm curious, like for other people who are exploring audio erotica who might have similar experiences to you, like do you have any advice when it comes to like let's start with sensory. Like, do you have any advice on like how to find the right sensory experience for you? Do's, don'ts, experiments, anything like that?
So I think, I do think it is a little bit of trial and error. I will say once I find a voice actor that, I've listened to a couple of audios and the sensory stuff, works well for me, assuming that I also kind of enjoy the story they're
Mm.
telling. I usually will, they kind of go on like a trusted list, and then I tend to listen to mostly everything they drop. And conversely, unfortunately, if I listen to a voice actor and, gone through a couple audios and there's an issue whether it's in the sound effects or something else of a sensory nature, then I generally won't kind of listen to them moving forward. Which is, it's you have to explore, what you like, what you like, but using kind of that, trusted VAs like, okay, well, I know that this person, the sound effects always work for me. The stories are, always good. I enjoy what they do. So, always pretty much will listen to what they
I
have.
have a question. I have a feeling some
Yeah.
people will experience like guilt if they
Mhm.
like want to support a VA but just can't because their style doesn't work for them, or even like
Yeah.
this is my favorite VA but I just could not do this audio. Curious if you have any
Mhm.
words of wisdom for those folks.
So, first, there's tons of ways to support creators in the space that don't necessarily require listening to the audio. Because I mean, I definitely have that where, I think I find a creator, I do think they're very talented, they're putting out a lot of great content, they're putting out great information, engaging in the community in a healthy way. But for whatever reason, and it usually is sound effects or sensory for me, I just can't listen to the audios. I still share. I mean, I still share their content. I follow along, to the extent that, I'm able, and they have kind of other alternate platforms, whether it's, a Patreon or something else where I can also, support through like monetary contributions. I do that as well. But I think you'll see a lot of folks in this space say that sometimes sharing or supporting really is just, sharing the content, liking, reposting. So you don't have to listen to an audio or even every
Yeah.
audio, from a voice actor to be supportive. And then on the other side of it, your other question, if there's a voice actor you love and you follow along, but there's an audio you just can't do for whatever reason. I have had that. It's happened to me. That's okay. It doesn't mean that, you're a bad fan, whether you're not supporting or any of these things. Clearly I've said these things to myself. That's why I'm saying them to you. But it's okay. Like there's catalogs, there's, tons and tons of drops before that. There's going to be audios after that. If that one's not for you, it's not for you. There's no obligation to listen to it or to force yourself to kind of be uncomfortable to listen to something.
Oh, I really like that you just said uncomfortable because I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Because I've also had moments where I'll come across like a creator that I love and I'll just listen and I'm like, ah, I hate this, and I
Yeah.
feel the need like there's this obligation I feel of like I gotta finish the audio. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I have to, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have this. I still have moments because I feel
Yes.
like yeah, like I'm a bad fan, or like,
Mm-hmm.
or I even like even something as silly as like being a completionist of like
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to every single audio of this, whatever. But I think like I'm starting to realize like, hey, Gene, like you don't have to finish the audio and just be
No.
uncomfortable for like 30 minutes.
Right. I mean, and I think, at the end of the day, this is audio erotica is meant to be pleasurable, it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be enjoyable, so you don't have to make yourself feel bad or feel uncomfortable and listen to something that doesn't work for you or that triggers you, because I mean there's certain sound effects that can be triggering for any number of reasons. But I definitely have to fight that same voice though, because I'll have that exact same thought process where it's like I'm like 5 minutes in and I'm like, oh God, I can't. And then I'm like, but no, I have to get through it. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can pause, you can stop, you can still, like the audio, you can still subscribe to the, VA if it's a, platform that has that. You can still support in other ways. You're not a bad fan, you're not a bad person for not finishing it. I do the same with books. Oh my goodness. It's so hard for me to DNF a book. Like we could talk about this for days.
Well, I think what it's so you're an eldest daughter. Are you an eldest daughter?
I'm an only child, Jeen.
Oh, okay. So
I'm an
there
only
are some
child.
similar vibes between eldest daughters and only child. I think, yeah, I think it's like this, like every time I have to like talk myself out of it, where I'm like, they don't know I'm not listening. They're not like, oh,
Yeah.
Jeannie didn't finish this audio.
Exactly. Nobody
um,
knows. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. And like at the end of the day, like yes, we love supporting our voice actors, but audio erotica is for us. Like what you said was really
Exactly.
powerful because you said like it's for you and it's for your pleasure and your joy. So like if
Mhm.
it's not bringing you joy, like Marie Kondo that shit. You know?
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Why does it feel
Throwback.
like a throwback? Are we old, Jeannie?
Shut up.
Oh no.
Don't say that. No, we look amazing. We are amazing and
I mean,
young, and it's
obviously.
fine. Well, thank you so much, Steph, for joining me on
Mhm.
Smut Chat and spending like an hour of your day with me. I love spending time with you, so this was a deep pleasure for me. We love your thoughts. I can't wait to see the final product of this. And we'll see you all next month for Smut Chat with Gene Bean. And until then, stay smutty, everyone. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks. Bye.